My name is Mark Murphy. I work for Specialized, and my role here is an instructor for Body Geometry Fit. We offer this full one-stop shop in terms of service, which involves a fitting in our studio here where we really fine-tune the athletes' bikes and understand how their body is going to be most well supported by that bike. So our goal is to make that bike fit the body, not the body fit the bike. So it was great to meet Katy today, and she came in for a slightly unusual fit in as much as it's two bikes in one. So it's essentially a road bike fit followed by a triathlon fit on the same bike. And this is actually our new Specialized alias, which is a women's specific tri-bike, i.e. a multi-sport bike. So we do the routine, which is we do a full thorough physical pre-fit assessment, which will be understanding the body coherently, and then we take that knowledge and put it into the on-bike adjustments. So when Katy came to us, she told us about her goals, her aspirations. I learned a bit about her experience, which was 3 years of serious cycling. And then she's got some goals ahead of her for the next year with a serious training program. So all of that I take into account, and then we just begun today's fit. The physical assessment is where we really understand the body, and if you think about it, the body touches the bike in only 3 contact points. That's the foot, that's the saddle, that's the handlebars. So we essentially move those components around in space to support the body as best possible. The factors that influence this is how the body angles itself in terms of forefoot or foot support, the range of motion, maybe in the reach and drop of that particular rider, the muscular stability or not, as the case may be. So we looked at the feet first as part of our process alongside the saddle. So we assessed the sit bone width, and the sit bone width is how the rider sits on the bike with their ideally skeletal support rather than soft tissue support. So we measure those ischial tuberosities, which are the sit bones, and that's where the rider should push off from, if you like, the firm foundation. Where the power is delivered, that's at the pedals, so that's the foot part. So we understand everyone has a degree of natural angulation at their feet. We measure that, so we term that the varus or valgus angulation. Most of us have a degree of varus angulation, which is the first metatarsal sitting higher than the fifth, so that's away from the center line. Katy was actually one of the, if you like, the average. She had a slight discrepancy, left versus right, left being slightly higher in forefoot varus than the right, but both of them offering a varus angulation at the forefoot. She did have a mild arch collapse, and she had reasonably high arches which weren't being supported in her current shoes. So early on during the physical assessment, I knew we could help her with some of the fit solutions that we offer, which is just providing perfect or adequate support, or optimum support, sorry, for the rider with the use of different size and angled solutions. From there, we moved on to her range of motion from the hips bending forward to touch the toes, and we understand a bit about Katy's spinal curves. And we did notice she has a hereditary kyphosis, which is just a mild curvature of the spine forward, which also added to her limited neck extension, which is her, in bicycle, in normal language, that means looking up the road as she pedals. So she had a limited range of motion looking up the road. So I had to consider that in my adjustments on the bike. The other elements that she'd been working on as well, which she was aware of, and she'd commented in her pre-fit interview with me, was her tightness in her IT bands, which are running along the outside of her thighs, which essentially they're stabilizers. And that was causing her some discomfort, both running and cycling, which again, I duly concurred that they were tight. She can go off and help with that. BikeFit can help with this today in terms of supporting it as best we can, but she can go off and do some rehab work on those, which she's already doing along with her coaches. And probably the biggest note for today was the leg length discrepancy. She was unsure, she thought she may have had one, but we did discover a leg length discrepancy. So that means her left leg was a little bit shorter than her right leg, and it was in the lower segment, so that's the tibia. And we could see that on the bike, because when Katy first started to pedal the bike, with no changes made to the bike, I could see her existing, if you like, condition on the bike was what we term a windswept condition. So where one leg dives towards the top tube in a valgus fashion, and the other leg flares away in a varus fashion. The contributing factors were arch collapse, forefoot collapse. The valgus knee was contributed to by that shorter leg overreaching at the bottom of the pedal stroke, and the varus knee was contributed or if you like, influenced by the moderately tight IT band on the right side, which was different. So we had asymmetry, we had physical segments different in the body or in the skeletal structure. So there was quite a lot of pieces in this puzzle that I could put together today. And in the realms of bike worlds, we often don't talk about much of a difference. We talk about millimeters rather than centimeters, and that's what we proceeded to do. We then moved on to the reach and drop of the bike, and that was an interesting episode of the fit, actually, with the on-bike adjustments, because the current position was, in essence, it was pushing Katy's shoulders up, hunching her back backwards, and essentially reducing her reach and making her feel cramped on the bike. And it was done primarily to give her, confidence on the bars, because she felt she wasn't being able to reach the lever hoods comfortably or even go to the drops on the bars. The reality there was she was running bars too wide for her, and they were actually they were a male, a guy's handlebar, and obviously she's a girl. And so we actually changed to a female specific bar, which helped to reduce or foreshorten that reach, gave her a more natural ergonomic hand position. And all of a sudden, the first thing she said to me was, wow, I can feel the brake levers, I feel in touch with the gears, I can make shifts when I need to. So safety was important, and obviously sustainable and comfortable position there. The surprise to Katy was when we started to increase that length of the saddle to handlebar, so the overall reach, she suddenly felt she could relax into a longer position, which she said to me again was like counterintuitive. She thought she'd feel stretched. And of course I could keep going and it would be too long, which we did experiment with our adjustable stem. We went further and sure enough she locked out and it was too long. And then we went back to that spot where everything felt relaxed. She felt the elbows bend into a comfortable position. She could relax her shoulders. We then began to see her natural back shape with that just very mild kyphosis there, and she was comfortably looking up the road. So we want to mimic what we see in the physical assessment. We want to replicate that on the bike as best possible, because that will give her sustainability. So with the saddles, the road rider versus the time trial or triathlon, the goal is the same. It's anatomical skeletal support, so sitting on the structure rather than soft tissue. We achieved that early on in the fit today with the Ura ladies saddle. We then moved on to the latter half of the fit with the triathlon area, where we sit on a different element of that anatomy, and namely the pubic rami at the front part of the pelvis, which we again achieved. So the goal is skeletal support, and we achieved that on the road saddle and also the tri saddle to good results. Having now completed the fit with Katy, we were fortunate enough to have a great studio here to work with at Specialized. We also use motion capture. In this case, it's a video motion capture, which allows us to view the rider in 3 dimension from side and front. We used our Retool Move bike, which is essentially it's a bike that goes up and down, back and forward, but the beauty is the rider can feel that change. It's a very objective tool. In the hands of someone who's trained and experienced and fit, it's a good tool and allows them to really make an informed decision about what would be the ultimate, perfection for this rider at this moment in time on today, as it is with Katy.
So here we have the final bike setup. It's a Specialized Alias. You can see it here in its triathlon configuration with the tri-bars and the specific seat post and seats. So yeah, I'm feeling great. It's been a fantastic day, been treated ridiculously well. I will now take the bike back to Devon, do some training rides on our local routes, obviously all quite hilly, and then I have the option to come back in a couple of months for a follow-up and check that I'm 100% happy with the way everything's going.